Hey there, I'm Parker Rex. I led tech for a startup that sold for 23 million bucks. After that, I tried my hand at building Airbnb for music. Very silly idea. And then I went all in on AI because this is the biggest revolution of my lifetime. It's bigger than cloud, bigger than mobile. And I've dedicated pretty much every single day to learning exactly how this works. So I've been in the startup game for a long time. And on this channel, we go through a couple different things. There's quick section for Q&A, quick section for some of the AI news going on, and then some of my takes that I'm finding out as I scale an AI services business to 100K in profit a month, as well as a SaaS. So let's jump in. First off, a lot of stuff going on right now. And we're going to talk about some like 5K and 15K contracts and how to position those, how to do them really fast. So the questions that have come in, let's see. I think this is, which channel is this? This guy says pato. That means duck. So I got to share a prompt with this guy. Thanks for saying duck. I'm pretty sure that's what it means in Spanish. And then I know I had two questions. One was around if I had a YouTube strategist. In short, I don't, but I can go into depth on that. Let's see. I have. Do you have a YouTube strategist? Hi, Marlon. No, I don't. What does one do? Helps get more sales through ideation, script writing, and packaging. To use one for the main channel? No, I don't. And so this is what I think about a lot. I am the YouTube strategist, and it takes time, obviously. And what I'm trying to do with this is I have different pillars of content, and then I'm always trying to leverage the thing that I'm going to make already into content. So this is what I think people are going to do in the future. And I feel like I'm just starting to carve out how this works. But I have a main channel, and then I have this channel. The daily channel, I already do the bottom part. Like I already do all this myself every single day. I just don't answer questions, obviously. But I go through and I figure out the news of what's going on so I can see if there's something I need to do. And then I go through and I strategize on what I'm going to do to make money today. So I already do these parts. So there's really no strategy there. And then on the main channel, what I'm doing that would maybe require some strategy, and I'm doing myself now, but if you have ideas, totally open to them. But it's how do you take the things that are happening in AI, like potentially this build that I'm doing that's like a 5K or a 15K build. How do you take that and then make it more attractive to Main Street? So Main Street being normies, people that are the 99% of people that don't know much about AI. So in short, I don't. But if you're trying to help out or if you have any ideas, let me know. Happy to hear them. Next is great video. I'm looking to build AI agents, but struggling with the cost of using multiple platforms like OpenAI, Relevance, and Zapier. The monthly fees stack up fast. How do you manage this? Should I absorb the cost up front or find a smarter way to balance expenses? You can always make more money. So there's a couple ways to approach this, but the multiple on growth are basically you can only reduce costs so much, right? Like if you have $100, you can only go down to $1, but you can go from $100 to $1,000,000 in terms of growth. So that's one way of looking at it. But I also understand just like being pragmatic and being aware that you want to have low cost things. And so what you can do is, first of all, you can't self-host Zapier. A lot of people say don't self-host. It depends on your technical chops. If you have technical chops, then I would just self-host for whatever you're doing, and I would do it with N8N. And then you can do a managed digital ocean instance. And I think that's about $40 a month. And that'll give you unlimited N8N and then unlimited Supabase. And there's a really good repo for this that I open here. I'm following. It is called the Local AI Packaged. So go follow this guy's videos. His name's Cole Medin. And you go spend an hour and you'll have it all spun up, and it should definitely reduce your costs. And then in terms of credits, just don't use Claude. Claude's the most expensive. So I wouldn't use that. And yeah, then just increase your costs, and you do that by providing more value to the customer. Cool. So on to the news. The news for today is all about Supabase. Supabase is the backend as a service. It started as a replacement for Firebase. It's a Y Combinator backed company. And it's the batteries included backend solution. What does that mean? It means that it has authentication. So your ability to sign in with social sign-ons, your ability to authenticate and authorize actions. So you might have an admin that can do certain things. You might have a user that can do certain things. You might have an anonymous sign-in user, which means like you're allowed to save some data, and then when we close you as a user, we associate that. But they're getting better and better and better, and I'm really happy about this because if I don't run a project for like 2 months and I come back, then everything's broken with auth. Like I just had this happen. And shout out to Hari, who's helping me with there on the map project. But what they're doing is they're basically putting more batteries included stuff in there. So one of them is the UI that they launched, which is a huge competitor to Clerk. Clerk is user management and authentication software. And they have a really, really generous free program, but it's just another thing. Like I think you should learn how to roll your own auth if you want to get technical, because being competent is the key. But what they did is they launched their own sort of auth. So if we go back to their blog and we go to, let's see, where are all the releases launch week? We're going to go through a few of them. So the Supabase library has a bunch of things in it, and you can see how it's laid out. What's included is all of these. So let's go and check them out. You have a client block. So this is already in their docs, but it's nice because it's hooked in with V0 and you can just run it through this. So this is nice because I can go and I'm going to just take these blocks and then I'm going to run these commands and it will remove things. So if I look at the map project and I open up my Supabase instance, I can see in client I have browser, which is your single instantiation of a client side connection with Supabase. You have a middleware, which this was changing all the time. This is something that literally causes so many issues if not done properly, where you'd go and you'd log in, and if it didn't get the token or Next.js changed the way that they handle cookies, then it just would not, like you'd be logged in, you'd have a cookie, but then you get redirected to the wrong page. This is a really problematic file. And then you have the server, which is what you're doing on the server side for client stuff with connecting to Supabase. So having this is really nice. So while I'm here, let me just grab this. Da, da, da. And now everything is updated and it's just going to work. Isn't that nice? Cool. So they have that, which is a nice block. So that's your initial setup. Then you have password-based auth. So you can see that this would be associated with things that you need. So I would go and I would run that. They have a drop zone. So this is likely React drop zone under the hood. Let's see. Create context. So you're using context to call back. They have bit rates. Ooh, they have their own hooks. What this would do is it connects into their storage, which is wrapped over S3. Yep. So they're using React drop zone under the hood. If you're not familiar, it's great that they're using this because it's just a proven technology. You always want to use stuff that's like been around the block. So this one has 3 million downloads a week. Kind of the one. They have real-time cursor. So that's kind of wild. You're doing collaboration software. I'm assuming that this is using their new broadcast that they released, which we're going to talk about in a second. But everyone should be using Supabase, that's for sure. Let's see how it works. Real-time cursors. The hook is use real-time cursors. Yep, it's using the real-time channel. So real-time channel is opening a socket under the hood with Elixir is what is written in. Elixir is super deterministic, super strict. All of WhatsApp was written in it. A lot of telecom stuff's written in it. So that it's just very reliable. So that's very cool. Current user avatar, just another nicety because you don't have to know what the best practice is. You can just drop these in. These are a lot of these things are just stuff that I've done before, that every dev's done before. They're just annoying because you'd go and you'd get a ShadCN UI thing, but then you needed to know, okay, well, am I using a get session or a get user? What's the best practice? So by putting it on them, the people who are writing these at the team that own the stack that you're using, you know it's going to be right. A real-time avatar stack, this is really dope. because then you can just pull in the users. This would be an example where it'd be underneath something on a landing page, right? Or on a document editor. An example I think of for maybe one that isn't as good because it's probably a lie, but I like Mark. I'm just saying, like, a lot of people fake this. He probably didn't, but like, shout out Mark. I love his push in the space, but that would be a real time avatar stack. Another one would be on Notion. So Notion, you'd have a doc, and this is my treasure chest of web stuff. So if you want this, then comment the word development treasure chest. Development treasure chest. That's kind of hard to say, but comment that word below, and then I'll find you. I'll hunt you down, and I'll DM you somehow, and then put that there. But yeah, it has all this stuff in here, like different components and different best practices for Next, different open source projects. These are really important. These are my favorite ones that you can use to see how they're built. So cal.com, Documento. A lot of people wouldn't say cal.com is a great one because they've been like migrating for a while, but yeah, data fetching practices, feature-based React architecture, how used cache works in Next, different templates. So, um, but yeah, that would be like in Notion, you'd see the real-time avatar stack, and it just happened to be that my treasure chest is on Notion. And then real-time chat. So this brings us into the next topic, which they released, which is these broadcast channels. So if you've built anything in real time before, you probably stuck a like Express server up or something like Python with their socket. Really easy to do. But what's nice now is, whoops, that's 5TV stuff. What's nice now is when you're getting information back, instead of getting all of it, you can just filter against it. Now that wouldn't affect you if you don't have many users, but it's kind of like I think of like GraphQL was a specific querying language for large companies to then have a querying layer where you're not fetching the entire object, you're not returning all this information that you don't need, you're just getting what you need before. So it's at the database level, which is really nice. It's at the broadcast level where you are going to you will receive basically exactly what you want, and then there's no more overfetching, which is really nice. The last one that I just have to talk about, I'm not sponsored by Supabase, but shout out to them if they want to, is, or there's two left, but the Supabase Studio. You probably don't need to have a SQL editor anymore. Like back in the day, I'd use SQL Workbench, and because I was a product manager, I'd just raw dog SQL all day to figure out stuff. And now, like, you would have like that specific place that you go for this, but this is getting better and better and better. Where in a studio, not only do you have an assistant that is trained on their stack, but now the assistant has multiple threads, which is really nice. You have the tabs, which is really nice. And then you have all these other things like tabs for writing the SQL, tabs for the tables, customizable reports. That's awesome. You could probably set up a webhook where the report gets output to your weekly scorecard so you can know what's going on. So you don't have to leave there. And they're just changing the game. Like, I am so excited about all the stuff that they're doing. The logs got improvement, and all of this is self-hosted, which is wild. When you self-host it, you can just insert in all the details and it's free, which is just crazy to me because it's open source. So that's exciting. And I think the last one worth talking about is edge functions. So an edge function was kind of confusing to set up and manage, and you wouldn't really see much visibility on their dashboard. What you'd do is you'd set up a Dino, which is node backwards, but you'd set up an edge function that can run independent of the project, which is helpful if you wanted to do OpenAI proxying or if you wanted to call something or send emails, or they have examples. Yeah, Stripe webhooks. But it's nice because it stands alone and it's hosted there. So you can have a trigger that when you want to vectorize something, that's a really good use case. If you're rolling your own RAG, which I don't think you need to most of the time now, but if you were doing that, then each time someone uploaded documents, then you could have a trigger that had an add function that would call DaVinci 002 or whatever the state of the art embedding model you're using is, which would probably be nomadic. Theirs is actually better than OpenAI's. And so now you have the edge functions in the dashboard. So you have more visibility. Before it was literally a table that named them. So that's very, very cool. And the last one, I keep saying the last one, but I forgot. They launched this LSP. So it's just autocomplete for all the stuff in your database, which is great. Now, next lastly, we're going to go through some of the strategy stuff. So I'm curious, you guys, have you used Squarespace? this, this sounds like it'd be an ad. Have you used Webflow? Have you used any of these no-code framework? Well, I think they're all irrelevant. I think they're toast. I think some of them are less toast on the toast index scale, on the toast on the Richter scale of how effed you are by AI. Webflow is so far on the you're effed meter that they're breaking it. Because Webflow, anytime there's a new change in technology, you have, let's say you start here and it's 2020, and over here is 2030. Now, Webflow and all these companies got like super hot in like 2015. And it's because the difficulty to code was just through the roof. It was expensive, and that's how they like really leaned in to selling their service. It's like, wow, you have a coffee shop, let's build you a really crappy website, but it's going to be so easy. Get this template. It's not going to load very quick. You're going to get spinners. It's going to suck for every customer, but it's easy. So they get really popular, right? So let's just do a little graph here. And we're going to do difficulty or cost of code. And then we're going to do Webflow. And then we're going to do, let's see, Squarespace. And then let's just like throw in like Wix or something because they're actually kind of relevant. So we're going to have a color. And I think that there's a couple different things that I'm trying to get across in this point. Basically, as the popularity of Webflow is up here in 2015. And then I think it kind of has held steady. But then I think it's just going to go like this. It's going to go absolutely off a cliff because there's no need for it. Because what happened was Webflow said, well, it's really expensive to code and it's really hard. So let's make a tab on the right side that is a visual editor for HTML and CSS. And that's going to be awesome. But no, it sucks. So now you have this whole cohort. You probably have like 1 million of these Webflow devs that aren't like, this is a misnomer. They're not devs, but they're not designers. They're Webflow devs. This was an in-between technology that is no longer relevant. They're not moving on AI. They suck to use. You push a couple versions of it, it gets clogged. The client that you're doing it for they don't care. If they got sold a Webflow website, I promise you they don't care about the technology. They just want it to be awesome and they heard cheaper. But now it's actually harder to make this than it is if you have like even a week of vibe coding experience. So bye Webflow. I think Squarespace, same sort of deal. I'm not a big Squarespace guy. It sucks. There we go. Squarespace, boom, dead. And then Wix, I think it'll maybe make it to like here. So if we were talking about the death of these companies, then Webflow doesn't get to 2030. Like it's toast. Both in popularity, its usability, it's just awful because it just got leapfrogged. Even the popular technology that they were trying to do, everyone just used Tailwind now. Sorry. So I think instead, what will happen is there's an opportunity for people like you and me to come in and basically flip the script. So anyone that's posting, like even though it's not that popular, there's still people out there that are stuck on these things. So you could do Webflow builds and you go find everyone that's doing it and you say, yeah, well, your thing, we're actually going to make it better. And you could just go fart out a vibe coded website in a day. Like I'm literally going to go do this after this call because I got a client and close friend, very reputable person in their space. They don't need anything fancy from the perspective of like a web app. It's literally a website. Website is just marketing site. No auth, maybe a little bit of content, maybe a CMS, maybe even not. Maybe just hard coding the values and then having Cloudflare host the images or sell. But they don't care about any of the technology, but you would be so much faster. You'd have so much more customizability because, again, Webflow, it's like if you want to go and make something custom, literally the thing that this client wants is I want a carousel. Every website on the planet has this. Guess what? On Webflow, you can't do this. You have to go and you have to get a thing called Slater.app. Shout out to whoever's building this for your passion, but pick a new topic, pick a new thing. That's a dead company too, because it just doesn't need to exist. You're taking this and you're making it a band-aid for this. It's putting a piece of crap on top of a bigger piece of crap. And it's just a crap band-aid. Like it's horrible and it injects this CSS in there. You can't even see what's going on. So instead, you're like, okay, well, I spent too much time trying to make that work and I'm saving you time and also highlighting an opportunity where I threw him a proposal. I'm like, okay, 5K for the Webflow one, 15 for the custom one. That was stupid. Having gone and done it, I realized, oh my gosh, like it should have been the other way around. If you make me deal with Webflow, 15K. I wouldn't even say that, but you get the idea. And it's like, I would just come in and I'd be like, okay, 5K, and you're going to get the best thing you've ever seen. It's going to be able to do a carousel. When you hover over it, you're going to see this cool thing. When you hover over that, you're going to see this cool text. You're going to have stuff flying around. You're going to have custom cursors, like all, not cursed IDE, like I can't draw, but like the thing that's on the screen that you click with. And you don't need any of those meta skills. You just say, hey, like this is the plan. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. And I'm speed running it in 60 minutes, fully recorded. You will see me speed run the website. It's got, let's see, 5 routes, 18 different pieces of content, 7 pieces of like press because this person's famous. And I'm going to use what I call the Abe Lincoln method. Now, I've outlined this before, but everyone in the world needs to start adopting this that's new to this space. So Abe Lincoln, president, right? Gets shot, too bad. That's not the point. He had a really good quote. It is, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend 6 of them sharpening the axe. Go sharpen the axe before you start yapping at this LLM. Instead, you figure out, okay, like think like a product manager. What are the things we're solving for? So you narrow down the problem, narrow the problem. This will be 1 to 2 sentences. You come up with the solution. How are we going to do this? There's likely some requirements in there. So this is where you're putting functional requirements. Like what are the things that you like see and that you need to do? And then you have non-functional requirements. Rex. My last name is Rex, by the way. You have your rabbit holes, so stuff you don't want to touch or you think could like blow up the project. In this case, there's literally 0, none. You have a time box. So how long you want to get it done for? This is just internal. You're not going to feed this part to an LM. So I'd say 1 hour, but it constricts you to the thing that you need to do, right? So this drives this. This drives this. The solution is bound by the constraint that you artificially set. If you don't do that, you're going to run rampant. And then we have rabbit holes and we have no-goes. So these are different, right? Rabbit hole is, I know this thing, but I don't know enough about it. They are the unknown unknowns that I can somewhat identify. It's like, you can't really identify an unknown unknown, but it's this area that's gray to you versus a no-go, which is, we're not going to use Webflow. That wouldn't be a good example. I'm just hating. But you'd say we're not going to have live CMS. We're just going to hard code it because we have an hour. Cool. So that's the Abe Lincoln thing. That's really helpful. Next, yeah. Next is strategy on a news page. So I talked news at the beginning of this, but these videos are I'm gonna find a way basically where the videos still are engaging for people who watch this later by just front loading the news, getting through it quickly. But folks that are commenting, they're like, "This is how I get my news now." I'm like, there's a use case. Listen to the market. So what I'm doing is the process that I normally go through is I scroll X lists, right? And then I scroll a couple different sites. So I might hop around to like, let's call it like 7 sources. And those 7 sources can be across email, can be across different websites. And what I'm thinking is I want to take something that looks like it's basically a one pager and it's the aggregation of all this info so that I can go through and I can tick off whether or not that's something that I want to yab about. Because then I'm training it on what's good or not. And so the first version of this will be when I bookmark content, I need it to be added to a folder. So I'm going to call that the news updates. And that will then be listened to. I'm not totally sure how. I hope I don't have to get an X API paid account because I'll go broke paying for that. It's so stupid. But there's probably a better way to do it. I can probably use a browser agent. But listen to the bookmark folder. If I can't get around that, I'll add it to a form folder. Now it's listening to that. We do a fire crawl against it. That turns it into Markdown. We have a summarize agent that writes like I talk, right? So I'll take the snippets from the front part of these videos and then train it to talk like that. Then I'll have the summarize agent. And then we post that to a either next site or React router because I just like want to try out the new Vite stuff with it. But then you'll end up with this product that I can choose to. In the first version, I won't have the checkboxes because I'm going to knock this out and I'll time box it for 90 minutes. But you end up with this dynamic page that will always inform whoever wants the stuff that I talk about and that I care about because people seem to care about it. And then the same thing will be done for the school community for Vibe Network, where the school gets auto updated. And the way that works is you have webhooks. So it'll be listening. Cool. So that's how that one's going to work. Curated news page, 90 minutes. That's the challenge. They do these builds inside the community. That's like the one thing I gate, really. That and like the 70 videos and 50 prompts and the updates. Last is Map. So what are we doing with Map? Map 5-in-1 productivity and health platform. It's an agent that has a bajillion agents underneath it. The main agent that drives it is your future best self. So here's you, you're at the bottom of a hill. And through life, you want to get to the top with your superhero cape on, right? And along the way, there's all these things you have to do. It's really hard. Like if you have a lot of goals. So the way that it works is it starts with goals, then it breaks those out into the next actions. And those break into the daily things, the weekly things, the monthly things, the yearly things. And we do a bunch of tracking. So it's a proactive future self that is yapping at you. And then underneath that, you have the calendar, you have your notes, you have your tasks, you have your health dash, which is Apple, Aura, because biometrics are useless most of the time. We need to put them to work. And so what I'm doing here, the strategy now is the multi-agentic stuff was just such a pain in the butt before we had agentic swarm management or orchestration. A lot of jargon there, but sometimes jargon, for you guys, jargon actually makes sense because if you know what the word means, it saves a lot of words. So in this case, the Agents SDK has guardrails, it has pass off, it has logs. This is a big one. So you can see when a decision is made. It has tools for agents. It has JSON structure built in. And and then obviously has the normal stuff, right? Where it's like you can have structured outputs and whatnot. The JSON structure thing built in is different from structured outputs. It just you write raw Python. And so what I'm doing is it will be a mono repo. So turbo mono repo. This is not a folder. How do you draw a folder? Kind of like that. That's a bucket. Whatever. This is a folder. This will be the next app, which is the dash. This will be the Python server, which was the agent, aka backend for that. There will be most likely an Astro, and that's the marketing site, marketing/CMS. A lot of people would look at this and they'd be like, wow, why would you use Next for the dashboard? Because I know it and I'm fast. And there are, yes, lots of nuances that you have to know to get the most out of it. But I spent 3 years figuring out those nuances from the team there. So I'm all in. And so that's the plan. And today is doing this, and then unblocking this by gutting out all that auth stuff using the blocks, going all in on the Supabase stuff because I'm prioritizing getting this in front of customers. Besides, like if the bill would just be crazy because Vercel, it doesn't support certain things, even with fluid compute, even with their concurrency stuff. There's just things it doesn't support. So it'll still this whole thing will be and then that's right, the Supabase. So this is like the IIAC infrastructure as code IAC. I wouldn't use Ansible for this. This is way overkill. But I'll just use Docker container stuff, and then like CI/CD will be through GitHub Actions. So when you write your code, it will run, it'll do the build on GitHub, and it'll use a runner, and it'll go to the server, it will update things. I have right now a plan for how you'd have no downtime. It doesn't matter right now because this isn't even out, and the downtime would be like a minute. But in the future, there's ways to deal with this. This is a solved problem. So that's how it works. Comment again if you want the dev treasure chest, then you should go and check that out. If you want access to me actually doing these builds, then you can join our school, and in there you basically have like an episode schedule of all the things I'm doing. So these are all the things that went out yesterday. There's a bazillion pieces of content because I just went out of alpha and released this to the paid version. There's people that literally charge $500 for like one of the things that I made, and I'm like, wow. Like this kid made $200,000 in a week teaching you how to make a really crappy podcast notes app, and I'm like, maybe I should have just done that, but no. Instead, I'm just jamming as much value in here because I'm incentivized to do that because I want to build this community. I think that community, media, plus code, those are the moats. So that's why I'm doing it, even if I won't make as much at the beginning. And then everyone will learn together and we'll all be friends. So yeah, I'm going to be doing the building the website from scratch challenge. I'm going to be doing the Open AI Agents SDK. And then I think that's the news one. Row below. Live news aggregator to school webhook. And then that'll be the script for these videos. Thanks so much for watching. Drop the comments, drop your questions if you want me to answer any questions. And I'll see you tomorrow.